What's up guys, welcome back to the channel. In today's video I want to talk to you about sleep and how sleep will make you a better runner. Now I know, listen, you've heard this all before and it makes sense. We've heard it that when we sleep well, that we're going to run better. But what is different today is that I actually have some recent scientific research that proves this. So while it may be intuitive that if you get a good night's sleep, you are going to run better, there was a recent study in the Journal of Strength and Conditioning Research that kind of took it to the extremes. Okay, but first, I did find out about this study by reading an article in Canadian Running. Canadian Running just has loads of good running information. So I will link to that in the show notes below if you'd like to read that article. And then of course, there'll be a link to the study in the article. Oh, and this is also the weekly running and training vlog where I want you to tell me about your last week of running. I want to hear about your successes and I definitely want to hear about your setbacks. Now, after I tell you about this study, I will go into my week of training. So if anyone's curious about how my week of running went, stay to the end. Okay, so this study was admittedly small. It used 9 participants, and the researchers wanted to study the effects of sleep extension and sleep deprivation. So what happens when you sleep too much? What happens when you sleep too little? And they were looking at the differences in endurance, performance, heart rate, and heart rate variability. So the 9 participants came in, and when they came in, they had all slept normally before the study began. Then the participants were separated into groups. We had the control, where they just slept normally. We had the sleep extension, where they slept 2.5 hours longer. And then we had the sleep restriction, where they slept 2.5 hours less than they normally do. And get this, I'm not just going to beat around the bush. I'm going to tell you what you already know, but it's been backed up by science. The athletes that got 2.5 hours more sleep than they usually do, they performed better. But that's not the only thing. Their rate of perceived exertion also went down, so they performed better and it was easier. If that isn't reason enough to focus on sleep before we go for a run, I really don't know what is. And obviously the athletes that had 2.5 hours less sleep, they performed worse. And even though they performed worse, it seemed harder. Or did they perform worse because it seemed harder? It's kind of a chicken and the egg thing. But it doesn't matter because all you have to do is sleep more to perform better. So the researchers concluded that intensity ratios incorporating mean heart rate seem sensitive to effects of sleep duration on athletes' readiness to perform. The athletes also concluded that when determining the intensity of any workout that you do on any particular day, you should take into consideration how you slept the night before. Now, for me, that's pretty easy because on work days, I know that I sleep less. But on days that I'm off, I don't have to wake up super early. I get to wake up naturally, which means I usually sleep about 9 hours. And obviously, I don't need the science to tell me this. I feel better when I go for my runs on the days that I sleep more. Now, a lot of you are rolling your eyes saying, oh, Matt, this is, of course, we know this. If you sleep better, you're going to perform better. But I can't sleep. I have trouble sleeping. And my friends, I get it. I have been there. I have also had trouble sleeping at times. But I did find another article on Canadian Running that gives you a few tips on how to get a good night's sleep. And I know we're not going to be able to do every one of these things all the time, but these tips are backed in science. So the first one is to keep your room cool. And if you're in the Northern Hemisphere at this time of year, some of you are thinking, Matt, keeping the room cool is not a problem. But perhaps if you are in the Southern Hemisphere or you're in the southern part of the United States, it's still pretty toasty out. I am still running my air conditioning every night. But ideally you sleep better when the weather is cool. And of course the ideal temperature for sleeping is between 17 and 19. But if you have a specific temperature that you like to sleep at, let me know in the comments below. The second thing you can do to get better sleep is to wear pajamas. Now this may seem obvious, it may seem silly, but the routine of putting on pajamas actually sets you up mentally and prepares you to sleep. It's the whole Pavlov's dogs thing. Put on the pajamas, you're ready to sleep. This next one is pretty obvious. Don't eat right before you go to sleep. When you eat, your body temperature goes up because you're digesting and it kind of inhibits your ability to go to sleep. Plus, it's not fun to lie down when you have a full belly. The fourth way that you can get better sleep is to go to bed and wake up at around the same time. Try not to mix it up too much. Now, right now, I'm pretty lucky. I get to keep a pretty regular schedule. But about 1.5 years ago, I was working midnights, so I would work all night, I'd come home, I'd sleep a little bit in the morning, and then on my days off, I would completely switch over, and I would go to sleep at night and wake up at a normal time in the morning. That really messed me up with sleeping. But right now, I'm pretty lucky. My work schedule and sleep schedule align a lot better, and I'm able to sleep pretty normally. And the fifth thing you can do to get better sleep is to turn off your screens before bedtime. Just like pajamas, we need to turn off the screens so we can prepare ourselves to get to sleep. If you're watching this video before going to bed, don't let me finish this sentence. Switch it off right now. You're welcome. And if you have stayed past this, thank you. So guys, if this was obvious to you, go ahead and comment Captain Obvious in the comments. But even though it was obvious, it's always fun to see that the obvious things are supported by science, because it's not always the case. Guys, I had a pretty great week, and I say pretty great week because my hamstring injury that I was suffering with late last week, it went away. And it went away because I took 3 days off, no running. Now the funny thing is, on Monday, I ran 8.2 miles. I ran pretty easy, but I was still feeling that hamstring from a faster workout I did on Saturday. And I realized, Matt, you're gonna have to take more than 2 days off. So I decided it's gonna be 3 days. And I stuck to it. On the second day, everything was feeling good. And I was like, should I do it? No. On the third day, things were feeling good again. And I gotta tell you, I was pretty pleased with myself for not going out for that run early. I said I was gonna be off for 3 days, and I actually did it. So then on Friday, I went out for 10.3 miles. Now it was 10.3 miles very easy, and I was ready to turn around if I felt any twinge in my hamstring, but I didn't. And I finished that 10.3 miles feeling pretty good. Now listen, I didn't incorporate any speed on Friday, and speed is something that can aggravate those hamstring injuries. But all in all, I finished Friday feeling pretty good. Saturday was 11 miles, and this time, because of my run yesterday where I didn't have any pain, I decided to throw in a little bit of speed. So I originally planned to do 2 miles at tempo pace, but I was getting towards the end of that 2 miles at tempo and everything was feeling good. So I ultimately did 3 miles at tempo and a total of 11 miles for the day. And the great news is that even after I had finished that run later in the day, that hamstring pain didn't come back. So I was pretty happy with that. But of course I wondered, is it a fluke? Maybe the hamstring pain is gonna come back the next day. So on Sunday, listen, I didn't want to push it, but I went out for 10.5 miles, very easy. And again, there was no hamstring pain. So, knock on wood, I think this hamstring thing is licked. Those 3 days off really did the trick. So even though I did take off 3 days, I still knocked out just over 40 miles, which is about 65 kilometers. And of course, because I wasn't running, I did spend a little more time on the Peloton. This week I knocked out shade over 167 miles, which is about 269 kilometers. So all in all, a pretty good week. A pretty good week because I was kind of injured coming into it, and then coming out of it, everything is feeling good. Guys, don't forget to write about your week in the comments below. Be kind, be happy, run well. See you in a couple of days.